All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Living the Dream podcast. Today on the show, we're going through Proverbs chapter 3, verse 7. So let's get in. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. The part of this verse that I'm really going to harp on is be not wise in your own eyes. And so what does this mean to me? It really starts with not validating yourself or thinking you're special. So oftentimes in entrepreneurship, I'll be kind of thinking through my ideas, thinking through these things. I'll be reading a book and I'll be like, yeah, this part applies to me, but this part doesn't apply to me. Or I'll be reading like a scripture and I'll be like, I'm just going to forget about that scripture. And I think that is the point where we are validating ourselves. We're thinking we're special. And so it's like, be not wise in your own eyes. Don't rely on your own knowledge. Don't act like humans haven't been on the planet before and you're the first one to come up with ideas. Be humble. Humble yourself. And there was an interesting definition of humble that I think Alex Hormozy talked about. It's not, and I think Alex Hormozy was actually quoting that dude, C.S. Lewis. Yes, that dude, C.S. Lewis. Alex Hormozy talked about the quote for humility being, it is not thinking less of yourself, but it is thinking more of others. So raise your perception of people such that it is above yours. Do not lower your perception of yourself. So maybe you think really highly of yourself, just think more highly of other people. And so when you humble yourself, it puts you in a place to listen and to understand. And when you're listening and understanding, you can learn about the things that maybe you think you're special, maybe you think they don't apply to you, but it's general wisdom, it's human wisdom. And if you can apply this to your life, it'll make your life a lot better. So be not wise in your own eyes, fear the Lord and turn away from evil. For example, be not wise in your own eyes. You may think that it's important for you to stay up late and finish this project. But human wisdom says it's important to sleep. And it's evil. Evil may be a strong word, a strong way of putting it, but it is evil to stay up late and finish that project because you are putting your selfish ambition above tomorrow. And tomorrow you're going to have to wake up, you're going to have to love your kids, you're going to have to love your spouse, you're going to have to love your colleagues, and you're not going to be able to do that as well if you don't sleep. It's a very small example of not being wise in your own eyes. Right now, in your own eyes, it is very important to finish that project because it is the thing that needs to be done. But if you sleep 3 hours and the next day you get in a fatal car accident, was that project worth it? I think not. I think we would all say that. And so when we're wise in our own eyes, we are listening to the flesh. We're listening to our selfish ambition. We're listening to things that are not going to do well for us. And they tend to be short-term things. We're not usually thinking long-term when we're talking about wisdom in our own eyes. But when you fear the Lord and you turn away from evil, evil can be anything that takes you away from God, which can be that short-sighted nature, a deadline from a project coming up that may lead to you forsaking your family or forsaking your friends or forsaking your loved ones, whatever it may be. Don't validate yourself or think you're special. Listen to human wisdom by humbling yourself, which means thinking highly of others, not less of yourself. And fear the Lord, turn away from evil. So that's what we're talking about today. Where has this shown up in my life? I would say seeking mentorship. I am the first one to implement who, not how when it comes to solving a problem. In fact, I think my best skill in life is leveraging people to get stuff done. I think inspiring people towards a goal, like talking about it and really going after it and then staying the course with people. But like when I'm doing stuff alone, it's hard for me to continue to work alone because it's just not as important if I'm not doing it with someone. And so growing together and leveraging people for their growth and for my growth is one of my favorite things to do. And I just love doing it because it creates win-win-win situations for everybody. If I'm the only one winning, it's not creating a lot of impact and I just don't like it. So that's where it has shown up in my life. I seek mentorship and I also seek to mentor others. And that is me not being wise in my own eyes, but humbling myself and listening to those ahead of me and then seeking to learn from those that are supposed to be listening to me. They'll ask me questions. I'll be like, that's a good question. Maybe I should change my thought on that, right? And so we can learn from mentoring or being mentored. That's the first place that's shown up in my life. And then I would say failure. So when I am trying to be wise in my own eyes, I tend to fail. I tend to get shiny object syndrome. I tend to think this is the way, I can switch it up in 4 weeks, I'll be fine. I give myself this short timeline instead of looking at life in a period of 5 or 10 years. I'll be like, I'll give myself a month to be successful. I'll give myself 2 months to be successful. And I think that's wise because I'm like, the timeline should work out if everything goes perfect. But how often does everything go perfect? And that is an example of how being wise in my own eyes sets me up for failure. If I just listened to entrepreneurs ahead of me, they'd be like, you should probably give yourself more than a month. You should probably give yourself more than 3 months. You should probably give yourself more than a year. And so now you take that wisdom and you ask yourself the question, can I do this consistently for a year? Can I do this consistently for 3 years? If the answer is yes, then go forward with it. If the answer is no, if you don't see yourself doing it in 10 years, you probably shouldn't start because it's not worth your time. And so failure and shiny object syndrome is where this has shown up in a negative light, where I have not been able to basically listen to the wisdom of others and the wisdom of the Bible, but I've tried to validate myself. I've tried to think that I am special and that I will be the special scenario that succeeds. And I'm not saying you aren't, because sometimes people are. For example, the Wright brothers, when they made the first plane, they were the special scenario that made that first plane. I think they had some competitors, but there were only 3 or 4 people, 5 people trying to do it. It's like not everybody in the world was trying to do it, and conventional wisdom said you couldn't. So I'm not saying this is always the case, but there's also wisdom on when to listen to wisdom and when not to listen to wisdom. And so if you're broke and your broke friend is giving you advice on getting rich, maybe you shouldn't listen to that wisdom. So pick and choose, get wise counsel. And if there isn't wise counsel, seek counsel from the Bible and then just pray about it. And ultimately, you'll know what God calls you to do. So that's where it has shown up in my life. Where do I want it to show up in my life? I want to base my actions and beliefs on truth, point blank, period. Being wise in my own eyes at their root just inherently have bias. And if they have bias, they probably have a bias towards falsehood and some towards truth in different areas of my life, right? But it's not complete truth. I don't think many humans, if any humans outside of Jesus Christ, knew the complete truth and knew it in their heart. And so I want my actions and my beliefs to continue to focus on truth, and that truth be rooted in scripture. I always love, anytime I get a self-improvement tip, anytime I get a business tip, I love to run it through scripture and ask myself, does this line up with loving people? Does this line up with serving people? Does this line up with bearing one another's burdens? Ask myself those questions, and if it does line up, I believe the scripture is true. I believe the Bible is true because it says it is. And so that is my notion for truth. And then I love when truth is challenged in my head, because I can go back to the Bible and maybe I'm interpreting a scripture wrong. Maybe my interpretation of the scripture is incorrect, not the scripture is false. Does that make sense? And so that's what I really love to do. And I love to base my actions and beliefs on truth and want to continue to grow in that. Now, where can this show up in y'all's life? The question I am posing to you today, usually it's like, take a first action step, have a first thought. And the thought today is ask yourself, what does God say about me? And then go to the Bible and read some of the things. In fact, I have a page of identity scriptures that you can read if you want to read them and ask yourself, what does God say about me? And then, here's the kicker, believe it. All right, that's all we got for you guys today on the show. Thank you for listening. We will see you on the next one. And on that note, we're out.